How's it going, guys? Persona Cheese here, and today I'll be comparing some of the stronger physical personas in Persona 4 Golden and deciding which one is the best. One thing before we get started, when I'm talking about these personas, I'll be talking about their base stats and the move they start with or learn, and because the amount of moves they could inherit is virtually infinite, I won't be including them in my decision. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First is Zagongin. He's a level 90 persona unlocked by getting the Strength Social Link to rank 10, and is powerful thanks to his extremely high endurance, pretty high strength, and ability to learn Enduring Soul at level 94. And of course, because he's a max Social Link persona, if you've unlocked him, you're guaranteed to get the max amount of Social Link XP and learn some of his moves. As for his affinities, he's decent, but not nearly as good as a lot of personas around his level. As you might expect for a physical persona, his magic is awful from a comparative standpoint, making his Miragidyne effectively worthless, whilst his agility and luck are decent but not great. As for his other moves, his Power Charge is a must-have for physical personas, and God's Hand compared to Brave Blade and Primal Force has the lowest crit chance, same accuracy, and its damage is in the middle. As for the moves he learns, Anima Freeze is absolute ass, Evade Physical is very handy, Enduring Soul is amazing, apart from the fact that it's only used for once a fight and then does nothing. Fire Amp is only good for him if you don't have a better fire persona, and Vulpal Blade is quite good in terms of consistent physical attacks, but not ideal. Next up is Futsunushi. He's level 80, and you unlock him by maxing out Chie's Social Link. His strength rivals that of Zagongin, but his other stats are all worse, and his endurance isn't nearly as good either. However, his affinities are better than Zagongin's purely because Dark is generally used less often than Electric, and Physical, which he nullifies, is used very often. Futsunushi also starts with Primal Force, the best physical move that hits one foe, with higher damage by a fair margin, higher crit chance, and the same accuracy, as well as Power Move and Mataru Kaja, which are both very useful in their own right. On top of that, he learns Apt Pupil and Arms Master, giving him an edge over some of the other contenders. Firm Stance, which he learns last, is more controversial, as it halves damage at the cost of being unable to dodge, but can be incredibly helpful in certain situations. Makala is in some ways a discount Zagongin. She's the max Social Link persona for Death, her strength is slightly lower than Futsunushi and Zagongin's, and she has much worse magic and luck than Zagongin, with slightly worse agility. In terms of affinities though, Makala is the best so far, especially since she has no weaknesses. She also learns Miragidyne and Fire Amp, but with her terrible magic stat, a dedicated fire persona or even Zagongin will be better. Makala doesn't have or learn a physical attack that hits one foe, but has an edge on the previous two because she starts with Myriad Arrows, heavy damage to all foes 1 to 3 times. Personally, I prefer moves with more consistency like Arrow Rain, but if you're lucky, it can be extremely effective. She also learns Mamadune and Mudo Boost, making her a highly effective Dark user. As for Asura, he's unlocked by maxing out the Sun Social Link. His affinities are definitely in the higher tier, and he has similar strength to the last 3 with meh endurance, but good agility and luck, plus the best magic stat so far with Miragidyne. Even so, he's a worse fire user than both Zagongin and Makala due to his lack of Fire Amp. He has Primal Force like Futsunushi, and Muraku Kaja and Mahamion, which pair well with his Spellmaster. Finally, he learns unique skill Unshaken Will at level 92, which prevents every ailment that stops you from acting. This skill is quite good purely because you are the most useful party member, and enemies that use these ailments, like bosses in particular, can be countered with this skill. Of course, the downside is it's somewhat situational, but the amount of times it helps you makes it handy nonetheless. Now let's talk about Shiva. She's the max Social Link persona for the Tower, and has similar strength to the rest, decent magic, poor endurance and luck, but pretty good agility. Plus his affinities are quite good. Now you might be wondering why I'm talking about a physical persona that doesn't even start with a physical move. The thing is though, he learns a unique move called Pralaya at level 87, which is one of the most powerful all foes physical moves in the game. This insane attack does severe damage to all foes, which can't be found anywhere else in this game, and on top of that has a high chance, i.e. a 50% chance of insta-kill. Its accuracy and crit chance are pretty standard for all foes physical attacks. This move plus Shiva's good strength and great affinities earn him a spot as one of the best physical personas in the game. But of course, the big problems are that until level 87 he has no physical moves unless you pass one on to him, and there's only one fusion combination, Barong and Rangda, making him hard to find. The second last persona I have to mention is Sraosha, who is unlocked by maxing Naniko's Social Link. His affinities are pretty good, his strength is slightly worse than the rest but not terrible by any means. His magic, endurance and luck aren't very good, but his agility is the best so far. He has Power Charge and Mahamion, but also Brave Blade, which is the weakest move compared to God's Hand and Primal Force. He learns Zeodyne and Megadolion, which aren't very good due to his awful magic, but he learns Harm Boost, which is pretty good, and more importantly Angelic Grace, which is fantastic as it doubles evasion from everything but Light, Dark and Almighty. However, it's arguably the only really good move he has besides Power Charge and Mahamion. So he's great for his level, especially considering he's competing against personas around level 80 and 90, and worth getting at the lower levels, but not as good as most others I've mentioned. Finally, there's Yoshitsune. I imagine at least half the people watching this expected him to be here, and for good reason. Looking at his starting stats and moves, he doesn't seem all that good. Zeodyne is useless considering his low magic stat, his strength and endurance are worse than most of the personas I've mentioned, and like I said before, 4, Brave Blade is worse than both God's Hand and Primal Force, but there are a few things that make him amazing. First is his affinities. They're arguably the best we've seen so far, and having no weaknesses is really handy. Second is some of his moves. Some of them are less than ideal, like the ones I said before and Electric Amp, but on the better side there's Power Charge, Heat Riser, and most importantly, he learns his unique move Hasu Tobi at level 83. This is arguably the best all foes physical move in the game. It does light physical damage 8 times, and the closest move to this one in terms of quality is Pralaya, which does a bit over half of the damage. Hasu Tobi effectively demolishes anything that isn't a boss or immune to physical, and can carry you through a good portion of the game. So, I'm sorry if this seems like the obvious answer or a cop-out answer, but no matter which way you slice it, Yoshitsune is the best physical persona in the game. Futsunushi is in my opinion the second best due to him nullifying physical, his primal force at people, and especially his arms master. If you have the space, it could be beneficial keeping both, but unless you're up against multiple foes, some of them absorb physical and you don't want to heal them, you can just use Hasu Tobi because nullifying physical means enemies that repel physical won't damage you back. Also, even though he doesn't learn it, it is possible to get arms master on Yoshitsune because Masakaru learns it at level 74, which makes Hasu Tobi extremely cost effective on top of it being extremely powerful. You can also give him myriad arrows from Masakato as a placeholder until you learn Hasu Tobi, and if you get Masakato to level 86, you can give Yoshitsune Enduring Soul as well. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see the main character's best weapon in Persona 4 Golden, click the link on screen.